welcome to Good Morning Joy. I'm your host, Shari Alyse, and I have got an amazing show for you today. So I hope that you've left some room in your mug because I'm about to fill it up with joy. I have got a doubly feel good episode for you today as I've got live in studio the founders of Made for Joy. Plus, a little later in the show, I'm going to be hitting the streets, talking to people about, you guessed it, joy. But for right now, I am going to be sharing with you the good news that you should know about on the Joy Report. One farmer in Kansas went all out to surprise his wife on their 50th anniversary. Knowing that his wife Renee liked sunflowers, Lee Wilson decided to plant some in his field. And by some, I mean 1.2 million sunflowers.
You know, what's a guy get his gal on their 50th? She always liked sunflowers, so we planted her 80 acres of sunflowers.
When asked what she thought, Renee said,
"Made me feel very special, and it can be a more perfect anniversary gift than a field with sunflowers."
We might have to agree. Although sunflower season is short-lived, their story is not. These two met back in high school when they were teens. Although Renee couldn't date until she was 16, Lee waited till her 16th birthday and he called her up and asked her on a date. And the rest is sunflower history. I want to give a special shout out to Lee Wilson for bringing your wife some cheer and also bringing it to all of us today. Except maybe those of you who are feeling a little pressure for your next anniversary gift. But hey, now it's time for a shamelessly cute animal video. I'm super excited to bring to you today the two founders of Made for Joy, the first XR platform that is focused on well-being. Jack Abbott is the founder and chief joy advocate. He is a serial entrepreneur and a visionary and a beautiful soul. And we also have Emiliana Rodriguez, who is the chief content officer, and she is an international social and learning expert who has changed the lives of millions of children in Mexico. I'm so excited to introduce you to these two beautiful people. Welcome, Jack and Emiliana.
Thank you, Shari. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk with you today because there's so much overlap in just the ways that we feel about joy. And so we're going to talk all about that today. But before we get into the impactful work that you both are doing, I'd love to know first, what is bringing you joy today?
Today, we just had an amazing ice cream and we went to shop for my little boy. So I have one of these toys that actually help us to bring joy and a lion costume. So that's something that brings me joy.
I love it. What about for you, Jack?
To be with two extraordinary women who are doing such good work.
Oh my God, that check came in, didn't it?
It did. Thank you.
So, I know, like, even for myself, I didn't wake up to one day decide that, my mission was going to be to spread joy and talk about it. So I'm just curious for each of you, how your personal journey, like what led you to doing the work that you do today?
Well, so for me, I was struggling with some depression and anxiety and feeling really challenged to just operate in this world. This was in 2015, 2016. And one day on my doorstep, I found this beautiful little rescue animal. She was in bad shape at the time, but she was so loving and so kind. And my wife left for Europe the very next day. So I was with this little rescue animal and myself, getting to know each other. And I started posting pictures of her on Facebook. And it was like, I got all this beautiful energy coming back to me. And, Facebook hadn't been a place of beautiful energy for me during those particular years. And so I decided, well, I'm going to shift all of my social media to just positive messaging. And it's like, I fooled the algorithms or something because they decided, well, he's only interested in positive stuff. So all of a sudden, the news, the politics, everything sort of dropped off my feed. And all these new people came in because they were excited about this positive stuff that we're putting out there. And suddenly somebody suggested to me a book called The Book of Joy. The Book of Joy was written by the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And the book talks about how joy is something we were all born with. It's not something that just happens, but that we kind of lose it as we go through our lives. And so what it taught me was that you can cultivate joy and the pillars of joy. And I ended up meeting with this beautiful woman who runs a resort called Rancho La Puerta. And she said, you need to do a joy event at my place. And so I decided to do that. I thought a few people might show up, but we ended up selling out the entire resort. And so I was desperately searching for extraordinary people that could help me learn to really share joy. And that's how I found Emiliana.
Yes, that's an incredible meeting. And for me, before I get to Gathering of Joy with Jack, it all started when I was very young and I got very interested in how does the mind work and how emotions work. And nobody was really good at explaining me that. My dad was a psychologist and told me, like, don't study psychology because we psychologists don't know it, like, really well. So I studied physics, but to then study neuroscience and understand how the brain works and the mind works. And suddenly, some of the first teachings that I got is that if you want to understand the phenomena, you have to be able to observe it. But our mind is hard to observe because we're always distracted, jumping from one thought to another thought, and it's blurred by our own emotions and biases. So I got to learn that in East, there were contemplative traditions that for millennia have developed a kind of technology to train the mind so that the mind could be a reliable tool to observe itself. So that technology was called meditation. And I started meditating when I was around 17 years old. I got very passionate about that path. So I went to India and lived there, and I did study neuroscience. So for me, this mixture of science from the Western perspective, but the science from these traditions and wisdom from the East has been my passion and my path. So I then started a master's on mind, brain, and education and developed programs to help others to understand their own mind and their emotions, because the main thing that I found through all these studies is that joy is not coming from the outside. It's not actually the ice cream or the costume for my kid, but is how these just bring me present and connect me in some ways to me or to love, for example. So that's what I've been doing over the last years. I co-founded an organization where we develop programs on social and emotional learning for children. We implemented at a federal level in Mexico. So all teachers and all students were learning self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, compassion, etc. And I was on that path when I got this call from Jack, an invitation to the Gathering of Joy. And of course, said yes. And then we met.
And the rest is joy history. The work that you're both doing is so impactful in so many ways. And I think for so many of us, something that you just said, that this idea of observing our own minds and the fact that joy is not something found on the outside and that it can be cultivated. You have this quote that I saw on your site that I love that said, joy is the happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. And I think when people get that, there's so much power in that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So actually one of the breaking through studies that have been done over the last years is one of, for example, attention. So these researchers ask people 3 questions in different moments of their day. So what are you doing? So people would say, I'm looking at a beautiful program. Then,
I thought you were going to say a beautiful me. I was like, thank you.
Beautiful you in a program. Then what are you doing? How are you feeling right now? From 0, I'm feeling very bad, and 10, I'm feeling fabulous. And then the third one is the important one. Where is your attention? Are you really present with the conversation, or is your mind thinking on something else, like your vacation or your work? And the results said that most of the time we're distracted. The human mind is a wandering mind. But more importantly, what they found is that the greatest correlation on well-being was not related to what you're doing. We would think that, for example, having an ice cream, having a nice meal, hanging out with friends, that could give us happiness or joy. But actually what they found is that being present in whatever you were doing, even if it was something boring, like, I don't know, something boring. But if you're
listening to my fiance talk about sports.
Exactly.
Sorry, John.
If you're present, then the probability of feeling joyful is greater than if you're having this amazing meal, but your mind is thinking about the future or worrying about something in the past, right? So these and other discoveries have led us to think and to actually realize that joy is not something depending on the outside experiences, but it's how are you experiencing it? What do you bring to this world? Not what the world is bringing to you.
So powerful.
I would say that for me, what I discovered, or the first thing that kind of changed my whole attitude about all this, was realizing that giving felt better than receiving. And when we talk about abundance, we tend to talk about the things that we get and that we want and that we receive. And I think our society has kind of shifted down this path of abundance means what I have. And to me, abundance means what I can give.
That's what I found in my own journey, that sharing and giving in that way always made me feel better. So I think that's so powerful. I know that you guys came together in 2016.
Yes.
And talk about that coming together and what has been created for so many of us, because you're bringing the science of joy, you're bringing the joy of joy, and you're bringing, technology together and impacting so many. So who wants to share?
So I started in technology in 92 when somebody told me about this thing called the internet. And so that was my life for 24 years. And when we first met, we knew there was something special there, but after our retreats, we would both go back to our businesses. I went back to my agency. You went back to your company. And then we would gather again the next year and do a couple more of these retreats. And we kept saying, one day we'll do something together. And so I was taken on this journey where I explored virtual reality, and I saw this opportunity to be really powerful in a positive way. And this kind of why you see this technology for good all over the work that we do. And of course, it was thought about as something for kids. And what we discovered, as you know, from testing with adults, we did a testing with Modern Elder Academy, which is really an average age of 60-ish. And with 200 and some odd people going through short headset experiences, 83% of them said they would do it again. And so we realized not only is there an opportunity to entertain and educate, but really provide opportunity for people in a much broader way than just the kids who have been developing most of what's out there.
And so you bring in this virtual reality, and are you teaching joy? Share a little bit about what is happening behind the goggles.
So previously to this discovery of virtual reality was the pandemic. So what happened in the pandemic is that we saw that the levels of stress in people were like crazy going up, and also depression, loneliness. So I was working on bringing some programs to people to heal that or help them with that. And we started using Zoom, and actually find out that using technology, we were able to curate programs on mental health and actually on flourishing that could scale and get to more people, and even more effectively sometimes than in person. So Jack sent me a headset and told me, let's try it, let's meet in here. So we saw the perfect platform to actually catalyze some of the abstract things that are related to the programs to promote mental health and to promote joy. So that's what we're doing since then. We're creating different kind of experiences for people, for example, just to start to be introduced to a breath work. So imagine that you're super stressed. You're a teacher. You're super stressed. You just have 10 minutes between one class and the next one. And then you can put on a headset and then be in a completely different environment. So you have an immersive experience. That's some of the power of virtual reality. We know that people feel 4 times more focused and more emotionally connected to the content in virtual reality than in other contexts. So you are immersed in this beautiful environment and you have this guide with a breathing ball that guides you through a breath work. So in little time, you're again centered. You have more clarity in your mind. But we don't stop there. We develop a whole framework that we call the Seeds of Joy, 12 and expanding skills that we know that you can cultivate. Like, for example, now that your mind is more clear and calm, then you can maybe focus on your sense of purpose. So you connect with a sense of purpose through a guided also exploration in virtual reality that takes you to different worlds. And you can then expand your perspective by, for example, storytelling, poetry, or riding an eagle, or even a unicorn.
I saw that, the unicorn.
That's a great example. We did this project with Bank of America where they said, we're looking for mental wellness for our employees and our new hires, and we want to show that we're committed to doing this. So choose 3 things that you'd like to share with us. So we chose the things that we knew they would love, this breathing exercise, and then this beautiful mindful poetry in an artificial intelligence designed space. And then we said, well, let's give them the unicorn ride too and see what happens.
Which is risky for corporate, right?
This is for Bank of America. They're riding unicorns around chakras in this beautiful kind of almost psychedelic space.
Who brought them on?
And so, it turned out that the unicorns went viral in this event they had. It was their first in-person event since pre-COVID. So there were thousands of people gathered in New York City, and they had this whole VR experience, but it was kind of in the back and in the corner, and there weren't a lot of people going in there. But a couple of people went in and experienced this unicorn ride, and the next thing you know, it went viral through the whole convention, and we were mobbed for the rest of the 2 days that they had this event. And so afterwards, I went back and I said, I would love to understand what worked, what didn't work. How did you feel about all of this? And they said, we had 19 experiences. The unicorns came in way up here somewhere. And their coverage in Barron's picked up the unicorns twice. It talked about how, and there were unicorns, So it's amazing how sometimes this playful approach to learning is, we talked about meditation earlier this morning, and people think about meditation in so many different ways, but meditation is not turning your mind off. The only thing that will do that is death.
Even then, I feel like my mind would still be going in my coffin. Is this coffin nice enough? No. So you're talking about the impact that creating experiences for joy can have on people. And I know that it has done that for people in Mexico, in violent areas. Can you share just a little bit about that?
Sure. We have an amazing project in Guanajuato, which is the state with more violence in Mexico. And it's a vulnerable population. Half of the people there live in poverty, for example. And we're working with a public university. So with them, we developed a program. It's introduction for flourishing in the digital era. So we want to provide students, and we're starting with 20,000 students.
Just 20,000.
Just 20,000 students. A program that will allow them to develop skills like self-awareness, calming their minds through mindfulness practices, but also an introduction to the metaverse and virtual reality, and to have this possibility of immersive experience that allow them to calm their mind, to cultivate compassion, a sense of purpose, and sense of perspective, and fly unicorns also in a gratitude ride. So to shift perspective of gratitude. And we believe that we have evidence that these skills are not only good for just having joy in that moment, but actually are great for academic performance, for productivity, and for creating a culture of peace and preventing violence and other behaviors like, for example, addictions. So there's a lot of research here, and we're also applying to start a research project with the Flourishing program at Harvard and other allies like Global Dignity, and to be able to measure the impact of these kinds of programs.
I think what impacts me, talking about impact so much, is the fact that joy, when you speak about it, is all about the connecting within and going inwards and not looking for it outwards. What is your hope for Made for Joy?
Well, we think we live in a fractured world right now because we have kind of this different way of thinking about what we're looking for, and people have become much more protective of what they own and their place in society. But when you're giving and when you're joyful, it makes you want to be connected to people. And it's all of a sudden people start caring about others and then caring about the planet and caring about each other. And so it's just it's such a powerful way to bring community, which community is one of the core elements of being joyful, is having a community.
Absolutely. And you both have said that it's not that we're so focused on stress and reducing all of that. And your whole perspective is about increasing joy, and then stress will reduce.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do find that sometimes in order for people to come through the door, that we have to help them first with stress and anxiety reduction. So sometimes we start with simple, welcoming things like a breathing exercise or a unicorn ride, and they're finding joy without knowing. We're setting them up to be joyful.
I want this unicorn ride.
And I would love to explain a little bit how it works, because actually the gratitude ride, we know that stress, you feel that your demands exceeds your capacities. So you feel overwhelmed. When you shift your mindset to gratitude, actually you're finding out that you have a lot of resources. Like someone brought the water that I'm drinking here. Someone did this and I was not even aware. So changing this mindset actually is a protector from stress, because then you start feeling and realizing that you have more resources from your community and from people that you don't even know to be able to meet your demands.
Well, I think that the important part that I pull from that is the idea of changing your perspective of how you look at things.
Yes.
I think it's the most powerful part that we can help people with.
And I think that's what you've done today, is you've changed so many of our perspective on that we can cultivate joy and we don't have to look on the outside. Just quick question for each of you. I love to ask this question. And besides what everybody else knows about what brings you joy, is there something secretly that brings you joy that maybe everybody doesn't know about that you're willing to share?
That's a good question.
For me, solitude. It's kind of strange, but I spend, for example, Christmas and New Year on a solitary retreat. So that's something that my parents came to understand and actually to protect me and help me to do that. Like to spend time in silence and solitude, find myself.
That brings me joy too. And for you?
Travel. I'm a travel bug. I love to be in different cultures. When I travel, I'm less about museums and histories than I am the street vendor or the people in the store, or, I love to tell people about Paris by mouth. What a way to tour Paris. The best croissants, the best cheese, the best charcuterie, the best chocolate, and then you eat them all in a wine store. So, to me, that's where I find joy.
I feel like I need to go on a unicorn to Paris right now. Thank you both so much for the work that you're doing, for impacting all of us, and for creating Made for Joy. So good. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Shari. We're just so happy to help be a part of what you're doing here. And it's just extraordinary, the effort that you put into all of this. And I wish you so much luck.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shari.
And now it's time to top off your cup of joy with this week's
my son, my family, to have time to spend with them. I can be happy when I have time to spend with my family.
Waking up every day and being able to do what I want to do. So I'm here right now at Runyon Canyon at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, which is amazing. Something that brings me joy is just moving my body, being active.
Gratitude is probably the base of what brings you joy, because if you're not grateful, it's I find there's a Zen philosophy of being content with what you have is happiness, and I feel like when I'm grateful for just the little things, the joy is automatic.
Ace, Ace Boogie, actually. His last name is Boogie. He's 12 weeks, and this is his first time at Runyon, so he's doing good so far. Yeah, I wasn't even planning on having a puppy, and then all of a sudden, he can't, like, basically my mom was like, he's adorable. I'm like, he is, and then now we're been together for 4 weeks. I feel like I have a kid. He's my first, like, kid, so it's definitely good practice.
We're glad you have Ace. He's bringing you joy, and thanks for bringing us joy. Thanks so much for joining me today. Be sure to get out there and share your smile with someone that needs it. I'll see you next time on Good Morning Joy, where every day starts with a smile.